As musicians, we are constantly trying to get different types of awards and accolades, but in this video, I'm going to share 5 reasons I think all these awards, such as the Grammys, such as the Summers, actually don't matter in the grander scheme of things. Number 1, these awards are typically subjective and not rather on the substance. This means that whoever is deciding, usually there's a committee or a voting body of, they say, your peers, that listens to your album and says subjectively that this is the best artist of the year, rather than listening to the substance of the actual music, for example. So no matter what, these people come in listening with their own brain how they see music, good music, and say this is the best artist of the year. Now the flaw to this is we all have individual biases. Some people love J. Cole and do not like Kendrick Lamar, but they're both hip hop artists. So subjectively, if I like J. Cole, I'll say J. Cole's better. And the next person will say Kendrick is better. But it's very subjective, and music in general is subjective. It's very difficult to listen and just say, okay, without any bias, that this is the best music. So it is really a matter of it's not so important because a group of people said that you are the best artist. That's the first reason. Number 2 that plays these awards, something called politics and bias. I previously touched on it, but everyone has their own bias. And if I know an artist and I don't know if I know artist A, for example, and I don't know artist B, I will probably lean towards bias on artist A because I know them and I can give them feedback on the voting process. And then there's the touch of politics. I will not say corruption, but politics, because we do not really know what's happening at the back end of these awards, how things are being managed or how people's hands are being rubbed, without saying too much. But politics are also an undeniable part of all these awards, and that's why it actually doesn't really matter for you as an independent artist if you get these awards. You have to remember that these biases, politics, are not a good representation of the kind of music you want to make, and not something you should be focusing on, because these awards have these underlying things happening in the back end. Number 3, all these awards have this problem, and that is a lack of diversity and misrepresentation, or lack of representation. Now there's different communities, different cultures, different ethnicities, different genders now, so diversity is a very difficult thing for these awards to incorporate, because they inherently have people on panels who may not necessarily vibe, per se, politics as they were to say, with a certain group of people. And diversity in general, it's difficult for someone who has never heard a good gqom beat to say that this gqom is a very good gqom. And for example, if they've never heard Amapiano and they say Amapiano is very repetitive, it's typically because they are not used to that kind of genre and their ear is not really tuned in. That is just to touch on the bias and the diversity, but these kind of things do have an element and play at the back of these awards. That's why focusing on them shouldn't be top of the list. Number 4, the issue I have probably the most with these awards is it kind of is more on the validation side of things rather than the intrinsic value type of thing. So what does this actually mean? Validation is basically external people coming in and saying your music is great. Yes, it makes me feel good. I feel validated. Someone's told me that my music is good. But the actual value of the music is the creative process. That's the value you as an individual are making, and the connection you are making with individuals by telling people or getting people into a mood or influencing how they see things. So that's the intrinsic value, getting fans that can resonate with your music and changing their lives to improve and impacting them to get to a better place, or help them understand that you understand how they're feeling. So that's the intrinsic value. That is more or less what musicians we should be striving for, rather than the awards, the accolades. We should be trying to connect with people through our music and get them through a phase or get them to a different phase. But that is something I think us as musicians should be rather focusing on, rather than saying how do I get a Grammy award or how do I get a Summer award. Rather, we should be saying, how do I get people to a better place emotionally or psychologically, or how can I resonate to people to help them understand that I understand what they're going through. For example, if I had a heartbreak, I write a song about a heartbreak, I'm telling people that I got a heartbreak, this is how I feel, so this kind of validates how you are feeling too. That's just an example of more the intrinsic value of making music, as opposed to I got a summer, yay, you know. Number 5, the industry is actually evolving. Things that mattered 10 years ago do not matter now. For example, when I had a MySpace, for a brief period of time, getting people to follow me on MySpace, I think it was called following, I can't remember now, that was a big objective. There was this other forum called Future Producers where I talk to other producers to get them to listen to my music. Now, all those things I put in effort 10 years ago do not matter now. And this 5 years ago, Facebook was the be all and end all. Now it's kind of shifted to TikTok, Instagram, etc. But these things are constantly shifting where people see value in different ways. If I came and said I got 10 million people on my TikTok versus a Grammy Award or some award, people now will say, I'd rather give you money on TikTok rather than you and your Grammy and your Summer. Typically because you have more engagement. But in 20 years time, if TikTok is still around, then people may see it differently. If you still have the 10 million followers on TikTok, that may not be of value. So things are constantly evolving. We don't even know if things such as the Summers will hold the prestige forever, but the music industry is continuously changing. So try not focus on those kind of things. Focus on building connections and relations within the music industry and with the people that are listening and consuming your music. But that's just the 5 things I think we, as independent musicians in particular, should not be focusing on accolades and awards. But if you want to read more on this topic, head over to my website, skillmusicsa.com.